Part 21. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 201. The road down the mountain was extremely familiar to Zuyun. He swallowed a breath-condensing pill and concentrated his breath to around the 6th level of chi refining. Then he went all the way up until he left the confused sword cliff without encountering anyone. Also, the ordinary disciples must have been hiding when the golden light flying boat suddenly arrived. As for the foundation building elders, they would definitely go there to greet him. I just don't know why Jian Tianming would take action. Zuyun didn't understand this matter at all. He had interacted too much with Sun Qiniang and knew that she was in the Lingjian section. Apart from interacting with Lin Zhenyang and Mu Huhui, he didn't go out much at all. And Lin Zhenyang and Mu Huhui are dead. So, what is her motivation? And why come all the way back to Yunzhou Lingjian sect? Logically speaking, after she escaped from the secret realm, the safest thing was to return to Wanjian Mountain. Judging from the flying boat, she must have gone back. Zuyun thought while touching the direction where the golden light fell. He remembered that that was where Jian Shiba came here a few years ago. As the distance got closer and closer, Zuyun also felt that the ice spiritual power was becoming more and more solid. But in order to catch his breath and avoid being discovered, he could only bear the low temperature. The colder it gets around, the more relieved Zuyun becomes. Because this means no one else will stay here. At the same time, Zuyun also felt several fluctuations in spiritual power, all of which were in the foundation building stage. He had already guessed that there must be a conflict between these elders and Jian Tianming. I just don't know if I'm revolting because of the money, or if I'm resisting. Finally, when Zuyun saw the battle situation clearly, he was only 100 steps away from that place. Seeing that Jian Tianming was the only one, Zuyun breathed a sigh of relief. Moreover, there were only 2 people left in the foundation building period, which was still struggling to support them. The rest became corpses. He counted them carefully and found that there were more than 10 people there, including all the people he had seen at the mountain gate before. Suddenly, he felt sad. Is the prestigious Lingjian sect in Yunzhou going to be destroyed like this? After recovering his thoughts, Zuyun once again aimed his gaze at Jian Tianming. Just by looking at it, he could feel that she was spending a lot of money. Zuyun thought slightly and decided to wait until she had eliminated the other 2 surviving foundation establishment stages before finding an opportunity to take action. After a cup of tea. There is no one alive here. All the elders of Lingjian sect died together. Jian Tianming put away his ice blue sword, and the ice and snow dispersed in an instant. The temperature began to rise, and the smell of blood slowly spread. On those corpses, the frozen wounds thawed and began to gush with blood, which was extremely tragic. The people stationed here in Wanjian Mountain, dare to kill, and this is the price you should pay. All Jian Tianjian soliloquies fell into Zuyun's ears. Zuyun suddenly frowned slightly. Elder Wan was killed by him. Is this because Wan Jianshan vented his anger on them? Is it Jian Tianming who is ruthless or cruel, or is it Wan Jianshan who feels that there is no need for Lingjian sect to exist? But while he was thinking about it, Jian Tianming moved. She first put the flying boat into her sleeves, and then slowly took steps towards the direction of the sect master's hall. Zuyun's heart tightened. Was she going to not even let go of her chi refining disciples? The world of cultivating immortals is indeed ruthless, but Jian Tianming is too much. He was indeed displeased with the Lingjian sect, but even if he wanted to get angry, he never planned to attack these minor chi refining cultivators. Follow up and see what he's going to do. Zuyun thought for a moment and decided to follow. Jian Tianming only walked, not very fast. It just so happens that my own longevity secret can keep up without using spiritual power. In the Lingjian sect, all the disciples had long been frightened and scattered like birds and beasts, and not a single person was seen on the road. Even though she could hear movement from the hiding disciples as she passed by, she never took a second look. If you don't want to kill people? What are you going to do here? Zuyun became more and more confused. It was not until he reached the sect master's hall that Zuyun suddenly remembered something. On the barren hillside behind the sect master's hall, not only Zhang Tianyuan is buried there, but the tombs of Sun Qinyang's two brothers are also here. Is she here to worship? Impossible. That's Sun Qinyang's brother. What does it have to do with her Jian Tianming? Not to mention, Jian Tianming is such an indifferent person, he won't even pay attention to the living, let alone the dead. Passing by the side of the sect master's hall, Jian Tianming walked up the hillside and stood in front of the two lonely graves covered with weeds. She took out the Binglan sword again, with a ferocious look on her face, and screamed like a madman, Sun Qinyang, is this your obsession? If so, then I will destroy this place. Stop. Hearing this, Zuyun was shocked. Sun Qinyang's obsession? Could it be that her soul is still there and has even affected Jian Tianming's soul? Zuyun does not understand the way of the soul because he has not yet reached the elixir formation stage. But he can understand that having two spiritual intelligences in one body is extremely detrimental to cultivation. He knew very well what kind of person Sun Qinyang was. After being slapped on the head by himself, although he acted willfully, he was still a very affectionate person. Before that, Sun Qinyang had even endured for several years in order to avenge her brother before even thinking of attacking the people around her. Too paranoid, but it reflects Sun Qinyang's love and justice. Perhaps, because of this, Jian Tianming wanted to destroy the tombs of her two brothers and cut off all thoughts of her. Zuyun's guess was correct. That day in the sword pool, the golden sphere in Jian Tianming's purple palace was the remaining soul of Sun Qinyang. She was in the secret realm, and was suddenly awakened by Jian Tianming and took away the control of her body. How could she be willing? In addition, Jian Tianming's golden elixir had not been nurtured, and was only at the foundation building stage. Compared with the strength of the soul, it was impossible to completely suppress Sun Qinyang. It was only by relying on the consumption of the past few days that Sun Qinyang was suppressed. This is why, although she used the secret method of Wanjian Mountain, she could not do anything to Sun Qinyang. Later, when Jian Tianming dug out the mark on her soul and fainted from the pain, she found the only chance of survival, which was to merge with Jian Tianming's soul. In this way, she can have the opportunity to regain control of her body at any time, and Jian Tianming can't do anything to her. Unless, she returns to the sword pool and lets Jian Yi protect the law and use the sword power to separate the soul belonging to Sun Qinyang. What a pity. Jian Tianming also felt something after approaching the spirit sword sect. Not only did she discover that Sun Qinyang had merged her soul with hers, but she also knew her obsession. My brother's tomb. If we return to Wanjian Mountain, it will take a long time. The fusion of Sun Qinyang's soul and Jian Tianming's will reach a deeper level. At that time, you are in me and I am in you, and it will be difficult to separate. Then Jian Tianming simply went all out and destroyed her only obsession directly. Maybe if she loses all hope, he can loosen her mind and take advantage of the opportunity. Only after killing all the foundation building period of the spirit sword sect did she come here. The two shared all the memories, and Jian Tianming was familiar with the road and stood here. Not only did every word hurt Sun Qinyang's heart, but he also wanted to let Sun Qinyang know that it was as if she had destroyed her brother's tomb with her own hands. No, stop. Just as Zuyun was surprised, Jian Tianming's face suddenly twisted, and another voice screamed out. This is Sun Qinyang. Zuyun was extremely shocked, and at the same time, he was even more certain that Sun Qinyang and Jian Tianming had completely merged into one. And from her words just now, he also knew that Jian Tianming wanted to really destroy Sun Qinyang. Fortunately, he did not rush to take action and came to take a look. Otherwise, Sun Qinyang would have no chance of survival. A thought that surprised Zhu Yun flashed through his mind. Haven't I had no grudges with her for a long time? Why am I worried about her again? No, I'm just looking for an opportunity to kill Jian Tianming. In Zhu Yun's heart, it was like a battle between heaven and man. And Sun Qinyang and Jian Tianming were also talking. It's just that the same voice, different tone, all came from the same person's mouth. But obviously, the control of this body is completely in the hands of Jian Tianming. Now, she just wanted to use words to make Sun Qinyang completely lose control, so as to hit her again. Jian Tianming's face was sometimes crazy, sometimes grinning, sometimes crying, sometimes ferocious. Until Sun Qinyang almost collapsed, Jian Tianming felt that the time had come. Under her control, Sun Qinyang seemed to think that she raised the sword in her hand. Then, she chopped down heavily on one of the rotten wooden tablets. "Brother!" Sun Qinyang's heartbreaking cry came from her mouth, but her face was full of satisfaction that her evil plan had succeeded. It was extremely weird. And Zhu Yun also took action at this time. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 202. Crack. The tombstone was originally made of ordinary wood blocks, and after so many years of wind and rain, it has long been overwhelmed. No spiritual power is needed at all, just relying on the sharpness of the ice blue sword. Wood chips are flying everywhere. "Brother!" Just when Sun Qinyang screamed in pain, Zhu Yun no longer held his breath. At the same time, he frantically circulated the spiritual power in his body, and under the ghostly body movement of Chang Shengju, he had quietly arrived at Jian Tianming's blind spot. But who is Jian Tianming? She had already discovered that someone was following her, but she had always thought that it was the 6th level of Qi refining, so she didn't care. When Zhu Yun's spiritual power moved, the realm of the initial stage of foundation building was revealed. She was furious. This Ling Jian sect actually had a fish that slipped through the net? Immediately turned around and stabbed Zhu Yun with a sword. "It's you, Zhu Yun." Two voices came from one mouth. But Zhu Yun's sword energy was already coming towards him. Looking for death. Jian Tianming didn't care about entanglement with Sun Qinyang's soul anymore, and forcibly suppressed Sun Qinyang's thoughts. He moved his sword steps and barely avoided Zhu Yun's sword energy, and then shouted angrily. 10,000 miles of ice. As soon as the voice fell, the boundless clear sky quickly turned into ice and snow weather. Under Jian Tianming's fury, goose feather-like snow fell layer by layer. It seems to have no weight, but each piece will cause great damage. But Zhu Yun, who suffered this loss in the secret realm, how could he be fooled again? Leaving fire. The fire column rose from his palm, and under Zhu Yun's control, it quickly wrapped around his body in the air. No matter how cold the snowflakes are, they will melt under the temperature of the fire. They are all the same single system spiritual power. Even if they are not mutually reinforcing or mutually restraining, they are all caused by spiritual power. What they are fighting for is consumption. This is one of Zhu Yun's confidence. Jian Tianming had just fought a battle, and his spiritual power, which was 5 times that of the same realm, should be enough. "Do you think this low-level magic is worthy of challenging me, Jian Tianming?" Jian Tianming said disdainfully, but his face became more serious. She had the vision of the Jindan period, and she saw the essence of this pair of moves at a glance. Sword rises, ice falls. She raised her ice blue sword to the sky, and slashed at Zhu Yun again from a distance. There was a sudden rumbling sound in the sky. A huge iceberg covered the sky and the sun. "Humph," Zhu Yun snorted coldly, and he did not dare to neglect it in his heart. He turned his right hand and held a soil armor talisman in his hand. The soil armor talisman filled with pure earth spiritual power was thrown to the iceberg by him. When the talisman light came into contact with the iceberg, it quickly turned into a huge soil armor. The speed of the iceberg's fall suddenly stagnated, and Zuyun also took the opportunity to dodge and avoid the range of the iceberg's fall. I almost forgot that you also have the means of talismans. Jian Tianming was not surprised. These were once Sun Qinyang's memories, and now they all belong to her. I know you have a lot of talismans, but your talismans are useless in the face of absolute strength. Jian Tianming is also a decisive person. She knows where Zuyun got the courage to fight with her. Instead of entangled here, it is better to defeat 10 skills with one force. Puff. She saw a surge of spiritual power, and instantly spit out a mouthful of blood, and her face became more ferocious. And her momentum also rose instantly. Not good. How can she use this method again after such a short time? Zuyun's face changed, and he didn't expect that after more than half a month, Jian Tianming used the 10,000 swords disintegration method again. Boom! The ground shook, and the snowflakes that were slowly falling around gathered towards Jian Tianming. This is to break through the Jindan stage. Let's see if this attack works before she breaks through. Zuyun made a prompt decision, knowing that once Jian Tianming reached the Jindan stage, she would have no way out based on her understanding of herself. Even if she had the talisman, she would be the one who would not have a good end in the end. Chaos Palm. Zuyun shouted without hesitation, and the spiritual power in his body gathered and stored in a palm. Suppress it? At this time, Zuyun didn't care about Sun Qinyang. He couldn't even protect himself. When Zuyun blasted out with a palm, Jian Tianming, who was piled up like a snowman by the snowflakes, suddenly exploded from it. A ray of extreme sword light met this boundless palm power. The snowflakes suddenly went wild, and Zuyun knew there was no way out. Even if her sword had the power of Jindan, she could only do her best to meet it. Bang! Chaos Palm hit Jian Tianming heavily. And Jian Tianming's sword also pierced an inch below his scapula. However, Zuyun had taken a lot of bodybuilding pills, and his body was much harder than that of ordinary cultivators. Although the sword pierced, only the tip of the sword was slightly immersed. But despite this, the icy force quickly flowed into Zuyun's body from the tip of the sword. I didn't expect Zuyun, your palm power is so powerful. Jian Tianming coughed up blood while speaking. But, so what? My ice spirit power, in a few dozen breaths, I will freeze you into an ice sculpture. Looking at Jian Tianming, who was forcing a smile, Zuyun said calmly, Jian Tianming, you think I'm strong, but I think, you're weak. Zuyun raised his sword and slashed at the ice blue sword. This sword was repaired by him at the beginning, so how could he not know where the broken mark was? Not to mention, the ice blue sword is still a low-grade magic weapon, while Zuyun's is a middle-grade magic weapon. Clang! The ice blue sword broke in response. Jian Tianming felt as if he had been hit hard, and he spurted out another mouthful of blood. Originally, her 10,000 swords disintegration technique was to forcibly overdraw her body's potential and temporarily improve her realm in a very short period of time. It has the same effect as Menghui's Yalou disintegration technique. The only difference is that one is burning longevity, and the other is burning realm. Wanjian's disintegration of Dafa is the latter. However, Jian Tianming already had the realm of forming pills. Now that he is using it, all he has consumed is his former realm. This means that Jian Tianming was in the middle stage of forming pills before. She has already used the disintegration method twice, so wait for her. When you fully recover, you will only be in the early stage of pill formation. This is why she has almost no scruples about using it. But now, after Zuyun destroyed her magical weapon, she almost wanted to die. Why are you okay? Jian Tianming said intermittently with a look of disbelief on his face. It was obvious that Zuyun was on the verge of collapse at this time, and all his spiritual power was lost after using the Chaos Palm. Logically speaking, I only need 1/10,000th of the ice spiritual power to freeze him to death. Why, should I tell you? Zuyunqiang steadied himself and couldn't help but touch his lower abdomen. A warmth came through, which was very comfortable. And this warmth continues to spread around the body, impacting the ice spiritual power remaining in the body. Afterwards, Zuyun pulled out the broken blade of the ice blue sword from under Pipa's bone and threw it aside casually. I will repair this sword, and then I will destroy it. Jian Tianming, do you have any last words to say now? Zuyun asked after swallowing a red blood pill and an intermediate Heki pill. The red blood pill replenishes blood energy, and the Heki pill replenishes spiritual power. Last words. Jian Tianming spat out another mouthful of blood, and suddenly showed a sinister smile. I know, you want me to admit death, and then, so that Sun Qiniang can take back my body? He, it's impossible. Even a mere ant wants to plot against me, Jian Tianming. When I was practicing swordsmanship at Wanjian Mountain, you didn't know in which reincarnation you would be a dog. After saying that, he no longer paid attention to Zuyun, but closed his eyes and immersed himself in it. Although, her body was too weak to deal with Zuyun. Even Sun Qiniang couldn't be directly obliterated. But she can torture Sun Qiniang with words. But Zuyun didn't know what Jian Tianming was thinking at this time. Seeing that she no longer wanted to pay attention to him, and also lost the ability to fight again, he simply took the opportunity to restore his spiritual power. At this time, if some bold people from the Qi refining stage come, there is no guarantee of what will happen to you. Here, silence quickly fell. But in the distance, there was a figure flying rapidly in the air. It's very strange that there will be such a standard of fighting in Yunzhou. Could it be that there are also people in the Danja stage coming to Yezhu? Yezhu cultivator, it's too early to get up early without any benefit. Could it be that he also knows about the great formation in the sea? This is not okay. According to my investigation, there is extremely spiritual fire in that formation. And I already have a pill fire in my body. If I take another one and fuse it, it will most likely help me form a pill and become a baby. When the time comes to get the secret treasure, won't it be within easy reach? Now that the fighting has stopped, both sides must have suffered losses. Hey, I, Tang Zhuyang, am going to take advantage of that fisherman. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 203. Tang Zhuyang is the real Zhuyang. With his late Jindan stage, his flying speed is so fast. Originally, he didn't care about the battle that broke out in the Lingjian sect before. The spiritual power fluctuations were all at the foundation building stage. But after Jian Tianming used the 10,000 swords disintegration method and Zuyun's chaos palm, he immediately noticed something was wrong. How could there be such a level of battle in Yunzhou? He had already regarded the formation in the sea as something in his pocket. It was related to his realm improvement and he would never let anyone get involved. But after noticing that the spiritual power fluctuations comparable to the Jindan stage disappeared, he had such a guess. However, to be on the safe side, he still increased his altitude. Without releasing his spiritual consciousness, he only used his eyes to see, and did not recognize Jian Tianming and Zuyun on the hillside. At this time, Jian Tianming had completely sunk his mind into the purple mansion, constantly torturing and stimulating Sun Qiniang. In this situation, Zuyun was powerless, not to mention that he didn't know what the current situation was. Because Jian Tianming's spiritual power was disordered and he had no strength to fight again, He simply walked to Zhang Tianyuan's grave after his spiritual power was slightly restored. Zhu Yun took out a pot of spiritual wine and drank it all. Then he took another pot and slowly poured it into the soil in front of his grave. "Brother Zhang, this is the last time I see you. If there is an afterlife, I hope you have endless wine to drink." Zhu Yun laughed as he said this. Because he really didn't know what Zhang Tianyuan pursued in this life. When he finished speaking, the wine was also poured out. Zhu Yun smashed the wine pot in front of his grave as before. But he didn't know that Tang Zhuyang in the sky found that one person was unconscious and the other was only in the initial stage of foundation building, and there was no one around, so he relaxed his mind. While descending in height, he quickly surged his spiritual consciousness over. It was too abnormal for these two people to burst out with spiritual power fluctuations like the Jindan stage. Zhu Yun turned around and felt the huge spiritual consciousness sweeping over him. He was terrified and screamed, "Master Zhuyang!" After hearing this, Tang Zhuyang also recognized his voice. He couldn't help but show joy on his face, but then became ferocious. "Haha, good boy, I thought you were trapped in the secret realm and couldn't get out. I didn't expect you to come to Yunzhou. You stole so many things from me, so don't even think about escaping today." Tang Zhuyang's voice spread across the sky. Those disciples of the Qi refining period of the Spirit Sword sect who thought the crisis was over and were about to come out of their hiding places to take a look were frightened and hid back again. Too scary. This is more terrifying than the previous two fights. As soon as the voice fell, Tang Zhuyang had already dropped from the sky with a palm, like a fairy from the sky. Under the lock of spiritual consciousness, Zhu Yun had no escape. This is Master Zhuyang who founded the Zhuyang sect with his own strength. The immense pressure was getting bigger and bigger as Tang Zhuyang approached. "No, if I don't move, I won't be able to take out the talisman." With fear in his heart, Zhu Yun knew that if he didn't move, he would have no chance of survival. While he could still barely stretch out his hand, he took out the talisman from his waist with great effort and held it in his palm. Concentrating his spiritual power, the talisman quickly glowed like a small talisman, and Zhu Yun immediately felt that the pressure was greatly reduced. But it was impossible to escape. Without hesitation, he held the talisman in his palm and went up to Tang Zhuyang who was coming straight down. Boom! The talisman glowed brightly, and Tang Zhuyang also slammed it down with his palm at this time. With the two of them as the center, an extremely majestic spiritual power turbulence surged out. The sect master's hall was directly affected and blasted into powder. The barren mountain also collapsed instantly, and countless large and small stones rolled down and hit the two. Zhu Yun, taking advantage of this wave of recoil force, moved his steps of Changshengju and quickly turned around to escape. He was glad that he had this talisman treasure and did not relax his mind. But this talisman treasure is only a defensive treasure. Even if he took Tang Zhuyang's palm, at most he only suffered some recoil force. What kind of strange treasure did this kid use to take my palm without any injury? Could it be the secret treasure? Tang Zhuyang was also very surprised. The scene of the fusion of the 10 light gates on Zilang Peak that day appeared in his mind, and his mind couldn't help but imagine it. Humph, you are just a foundation building period, how can you carry this treasure? Give it to this real person. Tang Zhuyang said nothing, and moved his body to chase Zhu Yun. Originally, he wanted to kill Zhu Yun with one move. But he also thought that if his power was too great and he killed him instead, he would not be able to get the control method of the treasure, which would be a big loss. Thinking of this, Tang Zhuyang's killing intent retreated, but it did not mean that he would give Zhu Yun a chance to live. As long as he got the treasure and mastered everything about it, Zhu Yun would definitely die. Seeing Zhu Yun's ghostly body moving away, Tang Zhuyang snorted coldly and followed him. Zhu Yun fled in panic. Running away from the Lingjian sect's mountain gate, he would be too conspicuous anywhere. The only thing now was to find a way to hide in the Magian cliff, and then enter the Daoliuli mirror to avoid the limelight. Zhu Yun thought that the commotion he had just caused had escaped Tang Zhuyang's detection. Little did he know that his every move was under Tang Zhuyang's control. Even if his Changsheng Ju was infused with more chaotic spiritual power, the gap in realm was simply a gully that could not be smoothed out. Alas, my realm is still too low. If I can escape alive, I must practice well. This talisman will be used less and less each time. Zhu Yun was also helpless. He wanted to practice all the time, but he couldn't let go of the people related to him. There is no need to say more about De Go Ergo and Chen Hua. Just because Meng Wei has done him a favor, he will never ignore it. As for Sun Qiniang, Zhu Yun and her grudges have been resolved. If he could help her at the beginning, it would be understandable. But in this situation, he has no time to take care of her. He can't protect himself, so how can he care so much? And Tang Zhuyang, after discovering that it was Zhu Yun, didn't notice that it was Jian Tianming from Wanjian Mountain lying there. That's why. The two fought fast and walked fast. On the huge barren hillside, there was only that body left. No movement outside. Although Jian Tianming has been immersed in his mind, his perception is not weak. She was puzzled and stopped torturing Sun Qiniang. Who knew that at this time, Sun Qiniang actually started a desperate counterattack. Jian Tianming, this is my body, do you think you have mastered it all? Sharing the body and the fusion of the soul, Jian Tianming obtained Sun Qiniang's decades of memory and experience. But Sun Qiniang gained more. Jian Tianming's hundreds of years of practice experience and the skills he had learned were also obtained by Sun Qiniang. It's just that Sun Qiniang's soul is weak, and it takes a longer time to absorb and digest so much information at once. And finally, she also knew the weakness of the golden elixir possession method used by Jian Tianming. Enduring humiliation and bearing heavy burdens, Sun Qiniang found an opportunity, that is, Jian Tianming was seriously injured at this time, and he could not control his body and his soul power was depleted. Sun Qiniang, do you dare? In the purple mansion, Jian Tianming's voice sounded in fear. She came back to her senses, but it was already a few breaths late. Sun Qiniang's killing move had arrived. On the spherical soul, golden light flashed from time to time, and blue light flashed from time to time. Golden light is the golden spiritual root. Blue light is the ice spiritual root. It turns out that Jian Tianming's golden spiritual root has never disappeared, but because of the strange elixir he took that year, it stimulated the ice spiritual root and then hit his golden spiritual root. And Sun Qiniang used the golden spiritual root as her last trump card. Counterattack, fight for control of the body, start. Zhu Yun rushed all the way to the Magian cliff, and when he was about to turn to the downhill road, he suddenly felt something was wrong. He looked up at the sky, and his eyes met the unfriendly Tang Zhuyang. Damn, he is in the Jindan stage, how could I forget? Zhu Yun was shocked, and in a moment he guessed the reason why Tang Zhuyang didn't kill him. His mind was like lightning, and Zhu Yun immediately thought of the scene when he was step by step here to kill Wan Laojun. With the help of the fog array under the Magian cliff. That array has the function of isolating spiritual consciousness, but I don't know if it has any effect on the Jindan stage. Thinking of this, Zhu Yun did not hesitate, quickened his pace, flew over the cliff, and jumped straight down. There was still fog between the cliffs. But this fog was not the fog in the sword array. When he jumped down, Tang Zhuyang quickly scanned his spiritual consciousness. Even though he was still falling, he was still firmly locked. What should I do? Zhu Yun racked his brains, clenched his teeth, but had no clue. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 204. When Zhu Yun landed, regardless of whether Tang Zhuyang's spiritual consciousness was still on him, he released his spiritual consciousness first. He found that his spiritual consciousness was still blocked by the maze below, and he couldn't help but be overjoyed. With the thought, he wanted to enter the Daoliuli mirror immediately. But in an instant, Zuyun's expression froze. Because he found that he couldn't form a connection with the Daoliuli mirror at all. What's going on? When he was shocked, there was another sound of footsteps landing. Zuyun was shocked. Who else could it be except Tang Zhuyang? Hey, interesting. This formation is not simple. Tang Zhuyang's voice with a hint of interest sounded in his ears. Zuyun quickly came back to his senses. From these words, he could hear that the mist of the sword formation actually had an effect on the Jindan stage. In this way, he seemed to have a glimmer of hope. If he rushed out of the edge of the formation and left the mist, he could quickly enter the Daoliuli mirror. In this way, even if Tang Zhuyang searched the bottom of the valley, he would not be able to find it. Anyway, I can afford to waste time, can you Tang Zhuyang? The most important thing is that I can completely use the steps of Chang Shengju without spiritual power. Zuyun held his breath and calmed his mind, not daring to make a sound. He knew Tang Zhuyang's position, about 7 or 8 steps away from him. So if he wanted to escape, he could only leave from him. Tang Zhuyang seemed to have forgotten Zuyun, and was still muttering to himself. The voice was transmitted to Zuyun's ears without missing a word. This formation has the effect of isolating spiritual consciousness, which is similar to the ancestral spirit formation of my Tang family. Unfortunately, the solution to the formation has been lost, and I don't know where it is. If I have the chance to find it back, I, Tang Zhuyang, will study the experience left by my ancestors and will be able to solve the secret of this formation. Zuyun, who had just opened a distance of more than 10 steps, couldn't help but stagnate when he heard this. Tang family. The solution to the formation? Could it be that Tang Zhuyang is also a member of Atang's clan? Impossible, such a coincidence. Although he was surprised, Zuyun quickly came to his senses. Even if Tang Zhuyang was indeed a member of the Tang family, he would not give him the solution to the formation. This was the person who wanted to kill him. As Zuyun fled, Tang Zhuyang's words kept echoing in his mind. The spirit formation. If he could master this formation, he would have one more method. At that time, he did read the analysis of the spirit formation by the ancestors of the Tang family in the solution to the formation. But Zuyun did not read it carefully and did not remember it completely. Moreover, this kind of experience also needs to be personally experimented in the formation before it can be mastered. This is why Zuyun only took a look and casually placed the solution to the formation in the space in the mirror. From Tang Zhuyang's words, it can be heard that this formation has something in common with the spirit formation. Perhaps, after entering the mirror, he can learn it well. Zuyun thought too seriously and did not pay attention to his feet. Accidentally, he kicked a piece of gravel. The sound was not loud, but Tang Zhuyang immediately locked the position. Good boy, you actually ran so far. The vision in the fog array was limited, Tang Zhuyang could not lock Zuyun, so he immediately used the range spell Golden Sun Curse. As soon as the spell came out, the fog was like a storm. But due to the limitations of the array, these fogs could not be dispersed at all. Even the 9 suns, no matter how bright they were, could not penetrate the fog, let alone attack Zuyun. Miscalculated. Tang Zhuyang shouted in surprise, his eyes revealed a solemn look, and he did not bother to take back the spell, and slapped towards the position where Zuyun had just made a sound. But how did Zuyun's experience tell him? When he made the sound, he had already secretly thought that it was not good. He guessed that Tang Zhuyang would definitely attack, and he turned a corner early and ran towards Tang Zhuyang instead. But he pulled the distance horizontally, even if he went straight, he would not meet Tang Zhuyang. But Zuyun didn't know that this time, he walked right into the center of the formation. Tang Zhuyang's attack naturally missed, but it was not a waste of effort. The visibility in the fog was limited, but the footprints under his feet could be seen. "Little guy, you are quite smart, but it's a pity that you can't escape." Looking at the direction of the footprints, Tang Zhuyang laughed grimly and was no longer in a hurry. Instead, he followed Zhu Yun's footsteps. But Tang Zhuyang underestimated Zhu Yun again. Although the footsteps were there, Zhu Yun's speed was much faster. Hearing Tang Zhuyang's voice again, Zhu Yun frowned. Obviously he could determine where he escaped from. In this way, even if he escaped from the formation and hid in the Dao glass mirror, he could not guarantee that he would be discovered. Only now, Zhu Yun had a flash of inspiration in his mind and decided to leave more footsteps in the formation to confuse Tang Zhuyang. At this time, in front of the grave in the deserted mountain, Jian Tianming slowly sat up. When she opened her eyes, her beautiful eyes had a different look. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and suddenly laughed. "Jian Tianming, you are very strong, but you are too arrogant. Don't you understand that arrogant soldiers will be defeated? I am Sun Qiniang, a small figure, but I didn't expect that I would have a chance to counterattack. Originally, I also thought that in the world of cultivating immortals, strength can solve everything. But after traveling with Zhu Yun for a while, I found that sometimes using your brain can make up for the gap in strength. This is the reason why you lost." Sun Qiniang sat up as she spoke. After taking a few breaths, feeling that her body had regained some strength, she knelt down facing the tombs of her two brothers. "Eldest brother, second brother. You have been dead for many years, and your ashes will eventually return to dust, and dust will return to dust. My little sister has embarked on a different path, and all of this is thanks to Zhu Yun. If you have spirits in heaven, don't have any grudges anymore. The grudges between Zhu Yun and I have long since been eliminated. You can go in peace." And today, Zhu Yun lured the Master Jadan away in order to keep me safe and regain my body. I, Sun Qiniang, owe him a great favor again. Revenge when there is hatred, repay kindness when there is kindness. Big brother, second brother, and little sister have a smooth path to immortality. Let's say goodbye." After saying that, Sun Qiniang kowtowed heavily. The dull voice sounded, and Sun Qiniang felt that her heart became clearer again, and there was a touch of brilliance in her eyes. She took out a pill from her storage bag and swallowed it, and the spiritual power in Sun Qiniang's body began to slowly recover. She took out another spirit stone and held it in her hand, looking at the ice blue sword not far away. The ice spirit root is gone because the soul of the sword Tianming has dissipated, and now only the gold spirit root is left. Then this sword is no longer of much use. But now, there are only spiritual stones left in this bag. How can I help Zhu Yun escape? By the way, spiritual consciousness and the flying boat in the sleeves. It was so fierce that Sun Qiniang's brows lit up with joy. This flying boat is a magical weapon in the elixir formation stage. As long as the spiritual consciousness is enough, it will naturally be difficult to catch up with the elixir formation stage. He has almost no fighting power. At this moment, he can only take Zhu Yun to escape first. Several voices just came from the direction of Magian Cliff, and Sun Qiniang decided to go there to have a look. "Zhu Yun, I hope you are okay." The confusing sword formation was set up by people from Wanjian Mountain, and with the memory of Jian Tianming, she naturally knew the role of the fog under the mountain. She even knows how to drive the confused sword formation. However, all she wanted to do was use the flying boat to take Zhu Yun away. Sun Qiniang flicked her sleeves and robe, and golden light points came out of it, and quickly formed a flying boat after landing. She managed to jump on, and then started to control the flying boat, heading towards the direction of Enchanting Sword Cliff. At the same time, Zhu Yun twists and turns, leaving countless footprints. Maybe Tang Zhuyang felt that he had a chance to win, so he didn't pay too much attention and allowed Zhu Yun to escape at will in the formation. Of course, it is also because he is not familiar with the formation, or he also has the idea of understanding this formation. Anyway, Zuyun was still in a safe situation as Sun Qiniang thought. It's just that not only Tang Zhuyang doesn't understand this formation, but Zuyun does the same. Zuyun just paid attention to the footsteps of Tang Zhuyang coming from under his feet and behind him. Without paying attention, he suddenly rushed out of the fog. He was stunned for a moment, then his expression changed drastically. Because he was not outside the confused sword formation. But it is in the center of the confusing sword formation. The towering stone pillars that were once broken have now been safely restored. Like a pillar holding up the sky, thrust straight into the mist of the mountains, the top cannot be seen. And under the stone pillar, there is a human-shaped gap, which was where Menghui was once imprisoned. Just so stunned. The footsteps behind him suddenly approached, and Zuyun was shocked. He turned back and entered the fog again, and he would definitely run into Tang Zhuyang head-on. Then, we can only go around and enter the mist formation from the other side. I hope that when he re-enters the fog, Tang Zhuyang has not come out yet. Unfortunately, sometimes things always backfire. Just as Zuyun jumped into the fog on the other side, Tang Zhuyang happened to come out and caught a glimpse of Zuyun's back. "You've been seen by me, and you still want to run away." Tang Zhuyang laughed ferociously and grabbed it with his right hand from the air. "I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 205. Wu. Zuyun only felt a strong suction coming from behind him. Even though he had rushed into the fog, his position was determined by Tang Zhuyang. How could he escape? "Boy, where are you going?" Tang Zhuyang retracted his right hand, and Zuyun, who was caught in the air, was pulled out of the fog. Zuyun was horrified, he couldn't resist at all. In a flash, when he saw that he was about to fall into Tang Zhuyang's clutches, he shouted angrily, "Master Zhuyang, if you kill me, you will never be able to get the solution to the formation of your Tang family's ancestral art." As soon as these words came out, Tang Zhuyang's movements suddenly stagnated. He said in disbelief, "How do you know about the heirloom of my Tang family? Are you from my Tang family?" Zuyun felt relieved, took a deep breath and calmed down, then said, "I am not from the Tang family, but I was entrusted by the descendants of the Tang family to hand over the solution to the Tang family members I met." When saying this, Zuyun couldn't help but think of Atang and Laohe. I don't know if they left the secret realm, or did they stay and return to Yunzhou. Tang family, still have descendants alive. Tang Zhuyang frowned, his tone raised, a little unbelieving. But then he thought, if that's the case, how can Zuyun, a young man in his 20s, know the solution to the formation? "Boy, hand over the solution to the formation, and I'll spare your life." Tang Zhuyang decided to see it for himself, and at the same time, knowing that Zuyun couldn't escape his palm at this distance, he simply let go of his hand and shouted in a deep voice. Zuyun moved his hands and feet, knowing that he could be released, and obviously want a chance to breathe. If used properly, he might be able to escape. Fortunes are sought in danger. If you want to survive, you have to test Tang Zhuyang's bottom line. What's more, the solution to the formation was placed in the Dao glass mirror, and he certainly couldn't enter the mirror in front of Tang Zhuyang to get it. With a turn of his eyes, Zuyun said, "Master Zhuyang, if you want the solution to the formation, you must first prove that you are a member of the Tang family. Otherwise, even if I die, I will not tell you where the solution to the formation is." This immediately hit Tang Zhuyang's soft spot. It is extremely difficult for him to practice until now. Just like Zuyun, he tried every means to improve his strength and means. Whether it is his own realm or skills such as alchemy and formation. As a member of the Tang family, he naturally knows some formations, but because the family was destroyed, many formation diagrams were lost. That's why, when he got the 9 transformations 9 yang formation that Sun Suanhua accidentally lost, he immediately studied it thoroughly and established the 9 yang sect. Because of this formation, the 9 yang sect has the ability to gain a foothold in Yezhu, which makes true Manju Yang pay more attention to the formation. Compared with the treasure of the secret realm, true Manju Yang is more concerned about this ancestral item. Boyun. If you can return the solution to the formation to this true man, the past grudges will be written off. Tang Yang also thought in his heart, no wonder this kid can come out of his 9 yang tower quietly, it must be a skill learned from the solution to the formation. He will be deceived first, and when the book is in hand, he is still a clay figure in his hand, and he can be molded into whatever shape he wants. Zuyun also sneered in his heart, he didn't believe a word of what Tang Yang said. As long as he doesn't hand over the solution to the formation, he will be safe before Tang Yang's patience is exhausted. During this time, he not only had to play along with Tang Yang, but also had to find a way to escape. Zuyun's heart was as clear as a mirror. He raised his eyebrows and deliberately said, "Senior Yang, are you serious?" Ha ha ha, Tang Yang laughed heartily, stroked his beard, pretended to be kind, and said, "Boyun, you destroyed my alchemy furnace and stole my elixir. Logically, I should put you to death. But as a descendant of the Tang family, I can get the lost ancestral items back. For you, this is a great favor to me. Not to mention that the original grudges are written off, I can even teach you a few top secret spells." He remembered that Zuyun lacked magic skills. He had also spent some time in the Peepa realm, and he had a lot of mysterious magic skills in his hands. In his eyes, Zuyun was already a dead man. Learn everything, and kill him later. Really? Zuyun's eyes moved, and his face showed joy. Zhuyang Genren said proudly, "Of course. I am a late Jindan peak, only one step away from Yuanying Patriarch, how could I lie to you, a foundation building kid? It is because of this gap that I, a foundation building kid, will lie to you." Zuyun complained in his heart, pretended to be silent, and said, "In this case, how about you teach me magic first? I have hidden the solution to the formation somewhere else. If you take the things and break your promise, I can't do anything to you, senior." "Good boy." Tang Yang laughed and scolded on his face, but he didn't agree in his heart, saying, "I, Zhuyang Genren, keep my word. If the solution to the formation is not of great importance, you should be sentenced to death for your doubt." Zuyun didn't change his face, he knew he was still safe at this time. The more you fight for benefits with Tang Yang, the more he will let down his guard. After Tang Yang finished speaking, he took out 3 books from the storage bag and threw them at Zuyun. "This is the technique I obtained when I was in the Peepa realm. Take a look at it yourself. Are you satisfied?" Zuyun took it and saw the names of these 3 exercises. The Art of Fire Outside the Body. Turtle Breath Sutra. 5 Elements Escape Technique. Zuyun could guess just by looking at the name. The first 2 books only looked at the name. But the third book made his pupils suddenly shrink. It is also named after the 5 elements. Is it related to the 5 elements Chaos Sutra? This scene fell in Tang Yang's eyes, and he sneered secretly in his heart. "I'm not afraid that your heart will be moved, but I'm afraid that you won't be able to feel the sincerity of me, Tang Yang. Boyun, I stole these 3 techniques from some big forces back then. External fire technique is a technique from the Fire Dragon sect. Turtle breathing technique is from the Shuilan section. Only cabinet disciples are qualified to study the power of Zhenzong. As for this 5 elements escape technique, it is a secret treasure in the Haoshan sect's scripture pavilion." Hearing Tang Yang speak again, Zuyun also knew that it was inappropriate to read at this time. After putting away these 3 skills, Zuyun showed an extremely satisfied look and said, "Senior is so generous, so of course I have to know good from evil. I will hide the solution to the formation path somewhere in Yeazhu. Please follow me, come here, boy. Zuyun deliberately moved the place farther away. To go to Yeazhu, he needed to cross the Hongduan Mountains. When the time comes, as long as there is a chance, I can find a place in the mountains to hide in the Diwu glazed mirror. Of course, the solution to the formation is the only relic left by the ancestors of my Tang family. If you exchange these techniques, you will still suffer a loss, Mr. Yun. Tang Zhuyang was secretly happy when he saw Zuyun flying on his sword. Anyway, as long as Zuyun flies in front, where can he run? One after another, the two flew directly from the bottom of the cliff. Zuyun followed the stone pillar upwards, and Tang Zhuyang followed unhurriedly. Although the spiritual fire in the sea formation is important, it is not to be obtained at this time. It's just that during this period, the formation will become correspondingly weaker according to the law, and the chance of him entering is greater. But if you have the solution to the formation Dao, study this book thoroughly yourself. Even when the formation is at its strongest, he is confident that he can enter it safely. It was with this in mind that Tang Zhuyang let Zuyun go get it. In just over 10 breaths, the two of them rushed out of the fog one after another. Before Zuyun had time to discern the direction, a golden light suddenly stopped in front of his eyes. Zuyun, are you okay? What about the pill formation period? Sun Qiniang said quickly. Are you Sun Qiniang? Zuyun was extremely surprised and looked into Sun Qiniang's eyes. There is no arrogance and indifference of Jian Tianming. But the weirdness that he is familiar with. It's me. I temporarily defeated Jian Tianming. I knew that you were being chased by the Danja period, so I drove the flying boat to find you. It's great that you are okay. But as soon as he finished speaking, Tang Zhuyang's figure appeared. Seeing this flying boat unique to Wanjian Mountain, and the half-dead Sun Qiniang standing on it, he immediately took action. Zuyun's expression changed drastically. He quickly jumped onto the flying boat and shouted in surprise, Sun Qiniang, run! How could Sun Qiniang not know about the incoming spiritual power? But when she just reacted, the spiritual power had crashed into the flying boat. It's over. Zuyun's face turned pale. Just when he thought he was going to die, he discovered that a golden shield appeared out of thin air on the flying boat. The shield blocked Tang Zhuyang's palm, but it also shattered layer by layer. If there was another strike, the flying boat would be destroyed immediately. Hurry up, run! Zuyun screamed in fear, and Sun Qiniang finally recovered and controlled the flying boat to escape quickly. Tang Zhuyang roared and quickly followed. Don't say that you gave me 3 skills. Even if you didn't, you can't let Zuyun run away. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 206. The speed of the flying boat was very fast. It was a magical weapon of Jian Chaiwu, who was in the Jindan stage. Moreover, it used spiritual stones, not consuming Sun Qiniang's spiritual power. Seeing Tang Zhuyang chasing closely behind him, but unable to catch up, Zuyun finally breathed a sigh of relief. He first swallowed a pill, and then sat down to regulate his breath. Although the talisman helped to block the attack, the meridians in his body were more or less shaken. He planned to wait until he recovered, then take over the control of the flying boat, and then let Sun Qiniang recover. An hour later, Zuyun finally recovered. He opened his eyes. The speed of the flying boat was still the same, and there was a black spot chasing rapidly in the distance behind. Who else could it be but Tang Zhuyang? Sun Qiniang, you heal first, I will control the flying boat. Zuyun didn't have time to ask Sun Qiniang how she defeated Jian Tianming. There would be plenty of opportunities to talk about it later. Okay. Sun Qinyang was not polite. Through Jian Tianming's memory, she told Zhu Yun how to control the flying boat word by word, and handed over the bag of spirit stones, and then sat down cross-legged. Zhu Yun could see that Sun Qinyang's injuries were not light, and even her life-saving magic weapon was destroyed in his hands. While controlling the flying boat, he took out pills from the storage bag. Sun Qinyang was not polite and accepted all the orders. However, before starting to heal her wounds, she asked, Zhu Yun, is there a good place to hide? This is not a solution. We use flying boats, and the spirit stones will always run out. And he is flying alone, and the consumption of spiritual power is much less than ours. Hearing this, Zhu Yun's heart trembled. Indeed, this is a big problem. Admittedly, he is far behind Tang Zhuyang now. But his consumption is also much greater than his. He is a cultivator in the late stage of Jindan. He pondered for a moment, thinking about turning around and heading to the sea, or to Yezhu, when he suddenly touched a unique porcelain bottle in his hand. He looked down and saw that this was breakthrough pill. Most of the pills on Zhu Yun's body were made by himself, but they were basically some basic pills. And this breakthrough pill was the spoils of war obtained from Ye Xianming. As the name suggests, the breakthrough pill is used to break through the realm. And this kind of pill can be used in the realm below the nascent soul stage. It is a lost pill, but Zhu Yun has heard Sun Suanhua talk about this medicine specifically. As long as you swallow it, you can break through a small realm, but because you can only take one pill in your lifetime, most cultivators will leave it to swallow in the last small realm. For example, from the peak of the late foundation building stage, break through to the early stage of the pill formation. At that time, when Zhu Yun searched for this medicine from Ye Xuanming's storage bag, he was eager to rescue Menghui and didn't think much about it. Besides, he was only in the early stage of foundation building. Even if he wanted to use this pill to break through, it would be a waste. And it would be too early to wait until the peak of the late stage to take it. So for a while, he forgot about it. But now, he was being chased by a late stage of Jindan, and Sun Qinyang was at the peak of the late stage of foundation building. If she took this pill, would she be able to reach the early stage of Jindan? By then, even if she still couldn't beat Tang Zhuyang, she would have a little room for improvement. Sun Qinyang, don't worry. You heal your wounds first, leave this to me. Zhu Yun didn't rush to tell Sun Qinyang about the breakthrough pill, fearing that it would affect her mood. Sun Qinyang trusted Zhu Yun very much, and responded, then frowned and said, Zhu Yun, actually I have an immature idea. Don't say anything, healing is the most important thing now. Zhu Yun interrupted quickly. Let Sun Qinyang recover from her injuries earlier, so that she can take the breakthrough pill earlier. As long as she can reach the early stage of Danja, she can save more spirit stones and let Sun Qinyang use her own spirit power to drive the flying boat. No, you don't understand what I mean. Sun Qinyang hurriedly said, instead of flying aimlessly, we might as well return to Lingjian sect. Zhu Yun was stunned and said, why? Lingjian sect may not have a place to hide. Sun Qinyang hesitated for a moment and said, Zhu Yun, I don't plan to hide, I can feel that we will be caught up by him sooner or later. If we go to other places, Lingjian sect is more familiar to us. You want to fight back. But if we face him, we will definitely die. Zhu Yun flatly refused. Zhu Yun. This time, can you just listen to me? As long as we go to Lingjian sect, I have a 50% chance of fighting. If you don't agree, these pills, I don't accept it. At this point, Sun Qinyang smiled, it seems not bad to die with you. Zhu Yun gritted his teeth. At this point, how could he not know Sun Qinyang's intentions? But I only pursue immortality in my heart, and I am willing to be like flowing water. Okay, go somewhere else, the chance is slim. Since you said that you have 50% if you return to Lingjian sect, go there and try. Seeing Zuyun agreed, Sun Qinian closed her eyes contentedly. And Zuyun pinched the realm-breaking pill in his hand. If she has 50%, I wonder if it can reach 70%, or 80% with this realm-breaking pill. Shaking his head, he threw these random thoughts out of his mind. He turned around and looked at Tang Zhuyang in the distance, and then controlled the flying boat to tilt slowly, from flying in a straight line, to turning a corner slightly. The angle cannot be too big, otherwise Tang Zhuyang will definitely find clues. At this time, Heizong, the young master's mansion. Come on, be happy. Li Heiran's mouth was dripping with saliva, his eyes were covered with a black cloth, and he stretched out his hands to grab at random. Not far in front of him, squatting were Big Dog and Chen Hua with helpless expressions. It has been nearly half a month since Li Chengan forcibly brought him back to Heizong. After a while, their elixirs will become ineffective. When the time comes, they will transform back into men again. During this period, thanks to the constant conflicts between Heizong and Wanjianshan, Li Chengan had no time to care about his son's affairs. Otherwise, the two people's current tricks will definitely be discovered. Chen Hua took a fascinated sword step and quietly dodged Li Heiran's attack. He shouted sweetly, "Oh, the young master is so powerful." The slave family was almost caught. When he said this, Chen Hua's scalp was numb. After using his voice to attract Li Heiran's attention, Chen Hua ducked to the Big Dog again and said in a low voice, "Find a way quickly. If we don't leave, we can only wait for the effect of the medicine to wear off before taking another pill." Transgendered Dan. The Big Dog sighed and said, "Although no one in the Haori sect has noticed this place, if we go out, we may still encounter people. After all, this is the headquarters of the Haori sect." Chen Hua said anxiously, "Big Dog, I know your worries. But if you stay here, you will have long nights and dreams after all. Then sect leader Li doesn't know when he will come back. If we show any clues, might we really be sleeping with that fool? It would be fine if I were a real female cultivator, but I am a male cultivator." During these days, the two of them racked their brains and used some games that children like to play to arouse Li Heiran's interest. Only then did they escape the disaster of losing their virginity. Otherwise, it will really make the heaven and earth unable to respond, and the earth will not work. But as time went by, and the news they learned that the current situation of Heizong was getting worse and worse. Originally, they were evenly matched with Wanjian Mountain, but with the sudden attack of the Magic Wheel sect, the Haori sect was immediately attacked from both sides. In this way, the Heizong was defeated steadily. Ordinary disciples suffered countless casualties, and the battle line was getting closer and closer to the sect. If the sect is destroyed, they won't be much better. Both of them were worried that the news of their departure from Wanjian Mountain would be brought back by Jian Tianming, and they were even more worried about falling into the hands of the Magic Wheel sect. There is a way, that is. The Big Dog gritted his teeth and said, "Senior, can I forgive you?" Chen Hua's eyes instantly fell on the Big Dog's sleeves. Because Luo Yanran has been hiding in it. Ever since she was taken into the Heizong together, she has not made a sound. If Daegu hadn't clearly felt that her golden elixir was still there, he would have thought that Luo Yanran had run away quietly. "It's really unfair to let me possess this fool." Luo Yanran's voice sounded faintly. These days, she is not having a good time either. She only has the golden elixir left, so it is relatively safe to stay here. If she escapes and encounters anyone in the Heizong's Dan formation stage, she will definitely die. It's not that she hasn't thought about this problem. It's that she, the dignified leader of the Yaluo sect, possesses a male cultivator in the foundation building stage, but she is a fool. Don't want to lose face? Senior, whether I can survive or not, I hope it all depends on you. When Luo Yanran revealed his thoughts, the big dog couldn't bear to be surprised and said in a hurry. But in desperation, the voice was a little louder, and Li Heiran heard it immediately. He immediately touched the side and reached out to grab the big dog. Hey, it turns out there is a beauty hiding here. We agreed, if I catch her, you will sleep with me today. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 207. The big dog was so frightened that his eyes widened. When they play games with Li Heiran, they will naturally win. Otherwise, how could he agree? Moreover, Li Heiran was still in the foundation building stage after all. He only followed the rules at the request of the two of them and was not allowed to use spiritual power and spiritual consciousness. This was why he had been playing this game for so long. If he resists, it will be tantamount to breaking the rules. If Li Heiran goes crazy and lures Li Chengan over, they will definitely die. Seeing that Li Heiran's hand was about to grab it, Chen Hua suddenly stretched out his hand and pushed the big dog out. Then he took the initiative to meet his own hand and was caught by Li Heiran. Chen Hua, you. The big dog fell to the ground and looked at Chen Hua in disbelief. Chen Hua ignored it and smiled charmingly at Li Heiran, who had already pulled away the cloth on his face. Young sect master is so awesome. I just whispered something and you heard it? Ha ha ha. Li Heiran wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth, with a look of joy on his face, and said, of course, I am the young sect master of the Haori sect. Hey, little beauty, young sect master, I have been holding it back for more than 10 days, do you want to take it first? Where are some elixirs? Of course I have to take it. The slave family is afraid that the young master will not show mercy. While Chen Hua was dealing with it, he gestured to the big dog with his other hand. The big dog understood and this was an opportunity for him to run away. Senior. The big dog raised his sleeve to his mouth and growled in a low voice. That's all. Luo Yanran sighed, and then a golden light flashed and suddenly flew into Li Heiran's belly. Suddenly, Li Heiran's body stagnated, the whites of his eyes turned randomly, and his body began to twitch involuntarily. Immediately afterwards, he fell heavily to the ground. Big dog, Senior agreed. Seeing that Li Heiran fainted like this, Chen Hua said quickly. I don't know, maybe. The big dog was not sure either. He certainly saw the golden light flying out of his sleeves. But the reason why he asked at the last minute was because he never thought that Luo Yanran would agree. Maybe she was just afraid that Chen Hua would be slept to death by Li Heiran, and then Big Dog would be the only one left, unable to deal with Li Heiran anymore. Eventually even she will be implicated. Rather than waiting for death, it is better to be aggrieved, as the big dog said. Put him on the bed first. The big dog let out a long sigh, and together with Chen Hua, one raised his hands and the other raised his feet. He carefully lifted Li Heiran onto the bed, and then put down the tent. On the other side, Zuyun turned a big bend and finally changed the entire direction. As long as he continues flying in a straight line, he can return to the Spirit Sword sect again. Tang Zhuyang behind him didn't seem to notice. An hour passed. Sun Qiniang finally recovered from her injuries. But he has not returned to his peak condition. Because of the injuries caused by the breakage of the natal magic weapon, it takes a lot of time to fully recover. Zuyun, how long does it take to arrive at Lingjian sect? This was the first thing Sun Qiniang asked when she opened her eyes. About an hour or so. Zuyun checked the spirit stone bag. Not much left. Fortunately, it's enough. In this way, I will tell you now how 50% of my hope comes from. Sun Qiniang looked directly at Zuyun, a look of determination flashed in her eyes. But Zuyun didn't notice that he was taking out the realm-breaking pill from his storage bag. Ignoring where it comes from, just take this pill first. When he finished speaking, Zuyun had already stuffed the elixir into Sun Qiniang's hand. This is. Sun Qinyang could feel that the elixir contained great energy. Although she did not recognize it, she knew that this elixir was extremely extraordinary. It is definitely not a pill that may be available in Yeazhu. Breaking Realm Pill. After taking it, you can immediately break through a small realm. You are already at the peak of the later stage of foundation establishment. If you break through again, you will be in the pill formation stage. Zuyun stared at Sun Qinyang with bright eyes and said, "No, this elixir is too expensive. Keep it for yourself." Sun Qinyang flatly refused. Sun Qinyang. Zuyun suddenly stretched out his hands, put them on Sun Qinyang's shoulders, and said seriously, "Even if I take it, I can only break through to the middle stage of foundation building. Can I deal with Tang Juyang in the late stage of pill formation? When the time comes, it will be the word death after all. Furthermore, you now say that you have a 50% hope of escaping alive. After taking it, you hope to increase it by at least 20%, right? If a person dies, no matter how good the elixir is, it will be useless. Are you right?" Zuyun's words were all on point, and Sun Qinyang fell silent immediately. After a moment, a light flashed in her eyes. "Okay, I'll swallow it. If we can escape from this disaster, I will definitely give you a realm-breaking pill one day." After saying that, Sun Qinyang swallowed the breaking realm pill directly. Zuyun didn't say much. He knew Sun Qinyang's temperament. As long as he said one more thing, Sun Qinyang would definitely talk back. "When the time comes, you say something and I say something. When will we go? When it is explained clearly, death is probably not far away." He withdrew his mind and no longer cared about Sun Qinyang, but concentrated on controlling the flying boat. Hope, it's all achieved bit by bit. All he can do is let Fiazhu return to Lingjian sect. I just don't know how Yu Yulin and Zhu Feng are doing. As the breaking realm pill entered Sun Qinyang's lower abdomen, the power of the medicine spread instantly, turning into an extremely huge force that impacted all her meridians. This feeling is both strange and familiar to Sun Qinyang. Amidst the tension, there is still calmness. A large part of the feeling comes from Jian Tianming's memory when he broke through the pill formation stage. Back then, Jian Tianming broke through the pill formation stage by swallowing a rare elixir. Who knew that he would turn his multi-gold spiritual root into an ice spiritual root? Sun Qinyang struggled to control the energy while extracting the memories belonging to Jian Tianming. Fortunately, Jian Tianming was possessed by the golden elixir in her body. Even though her body is now controlled by Sun Qinyang, the power of the golden elixir that originally belonged to Jian Tianming is still more or less retained in her body. I'm afraid Jian Tianming didn't expect that he could finally escape, hibernated for hundreds of years, changed into countless bodies, and finally made Sun Qinyang's wedding dress all of them. As the sounds of broken glass lamps were heard from various parts of her body, Sun Qinyang knew that her bottlenecks were being broken one by one. Until the sound no longer sounds, all limbs and bones are unobstructed. At the same time, all this power surged back into Danshan and began to wrap around the Taoist platform. Gradually, the completely wrapped Taoist platform seemed to be like a ball, slowly spinning on its own. And, keep condensing. The suction coming from the rotation spread out from the body, forming a huge vortex. The spiritual power in the air was absorbed crazily by this vortex. Zuyun was also shocked by this scene. Is this the breakthrough to the elixir formation stage? Is it so easy for someone with a single spiritual root like Sun Qinyang? He pinched his fingers, and only an hour passed. Little did I know. There are many reasons for this. If Zuyun breaks through the core formation stage, his 5 spiritual roots will not last for 10 days and a half, and it will be impossible to complete it. As Sun Qinyang absorbed spiritual power faster and faster, bursts of gas explosions sounded in the air. The sound was heard even by Tang Juyang in the distance. This is Tang Zhuyang's eyes narrowed. He was in the Danja stage, so he recognized it naturally. Okay, you actually dared to break through the bottleneck when you were running for your life. However, even if you break through to the pill-forming stage, can you beat me in the late-stage pill-forming stage? How childish! But, Tang Zhuyang, have never tried a puppet in the pill formation stage. If we can harvest the pill forming period into a puppet, the chance of harvesting the spiritual fire during the sea area formation trip will be greatly increased. Thinking of this, Tang Zhuyang was extremely excited. With the puppet in the pill formation stage, it will be easier for him to enter the Peepa realm when the time comes. As Sun Qinyang slowly opened her eyes, the whirlpool disappeared instantly. The spiritual energy that was attracted but had not yet entered her body was instantly dissipated. Sun Qinyang smiled sweetly and said, Zuyun, now there is at least 90% hope. Zuyun was overjoyed when he heard this and said, really? When did I, Sun Qinyang, lie to you? She glanced at Zuyun and took over the control of the flying boat. Although she still maintained a steady speed, the spiritual power of the spiritual stones in the formation's eyes was no longer consumed. Zuyun knew that Sun Qinyang was using her spiritual power to drive the flying boat. But there was one thing he didn't know. Sun Qinyang said she was 90% hopeful. In fact, you have to put your life on the line. The flying boat galloped all the way. Zuyun has been paying attention to the fluctuations of spiritual power on Sun Qinyang. There is a reduction, but it is very slight. If Sun Qinyang was allowed to break through from the beginning and then control the flying boat, there would be no need to turn back. But now that the matter has come to this, we can only deal with Tang Zhuyang wholeheartedly. By the way, where exactly should we go to the Spirit Sword sect? Zuyun asked quickly. At present, he still knew nothing about Sun Qinyang's plan. Miscellaneous Sword Cliff. Sun Qinyang said lightly, because she was thinking about the implementation of the specific plan. Misty Sword Cliff? Do you want to borrow the mist formation below? Zuyun was stunned and felt a little strange. Logically speaking, Sun Qinyang should have never been to the bottom of Mijian Cliff, right? Absolutely. Sun Qinyang thought about it, but there was a missing link in the plan, so she decided to ask Zuyun to help, and continued, you have been there before, you should know that this mist formation can isolate spiritual consciousness, right? I need you to attract him. Pay attention, and then I have to make some arrangements. Deployment? What does this mean? Zuyun was shocked and vaguely guessed something. I have the memory of Jian Tianming. Sun Qinyang pointed to her forehead and said, this mysterious sword cliff is the great formation of Wanjian Mountain. As the youngest elder in the history of Wanjian Mountain, I naturally understand this mysterious sword cliff, the method of driving the array. Zuyun said in shock, Sun Qinyang, do you want to use the confused sword formation to suppress Tang Zhuyang? She remembered that Menghui had also been suppressed here for 500 years. You know, Menghui was also in the elixir formation stage at that time. That's right. Since Sun Qinyang decided to let Zuyun help, she also revealed her plan completely. The activation of the confused sword formation is extremely complicated, and Tang Zhuyang is chasing after him. If you don't delay him, I won't have time to arrange it. Zuyun's eyes became solemn, and after some thought, this was indeed the only way. Even if it can't kill Tang Zhuyang, it can still trap him here for hundreds of years. Okay, if it's to attract his attention, I can. He had previously fooled Tang Zhuyang around in the mist array. I believe you. Sun Qinyang had an inexplicable trust in Zuyun, and smiled, when I call you, you will come out of the mist. Then, I can trap him in the stone pillar. Then, you and I can escape. Sun Qinyang's eyes were curved like crescents. Zuyun saved her life again. Then I will naturally return your life. As for whether I live or not, it doesn't matter anymore. The two agreed on some details, and the flying boat returned to the Lingjian sect again. Below. Those disciples who finally found that the sect was safe, saw the familiar golden light again, and fled again, hiding in a safe place. And Sun Qinyang directly controlled the flying boat and rushed straight down the Magian cliff. After landing, he said to Zuyun directly, "This flying boat is for you. If you fail, you will escape on your own." As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of breaking through the air was heard above his head. Tang Zhuyang is back too. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 208. This kind of magic weapon that can be used to escape with only spirit stones is what Zuyun wanted. But Sun Qinyang gave it to him for no reason, so how could he accept it? But in a hurry, Sun Qinyang directly erased the connection with the magic weapon after she finished speaking, and rushed straight to the center of the sword array. Zuyun had no choice. At this time, Tang Zhuyang had landed, and this flying boat couldn't be given to that old thing for nothing. He quickly put away the flying boat and shouted, "Tang Zhuyang, I'm here." After that, he deliberately threw a firebird talisman in the direction of the footsteps. The sound of the phoenix rang out, and the super-level firebird talisman turned into a fire phoenix and rushed towards Tang Zhuyang. "Good boy, you actually have such means." Facing the fire phoenix that was comparable to the attack of the Jindan period, Tang Zhuyang was also shocked. Although he didn't take it seriously, if he was hit, he would be more or less injured. As he dodged, he stretched out his hand and condensed a human-shaped flame. "Go, find that person." As soon as the words fell, the human-shaped flame broke through the fog and chased after Zuyun. Zuyun used the same trick again, put away his spiritual power and used the Changshengju footwork. With the footsteps left on the ground before, it was even more difficult to tell the direction in the fog. But who knew? The human-shaped flame actually had its own consciousness, ignoring the confusing footprints on the ground, and rushed towards Zuyun accurately. "Is this spiritual fire?" Zuyun was shocked. Although the flame did not rush to his eyes, he could still see the outline of the fire through the fog. Moreover, after the fire, the footsteps were getting closer and closer. It was obvious that Tang Zhuyang followed the spiritual fire. Since his whereabouts were discovered, Zuyun dared not to restrain his spiritual power. He immediately used the chaotic spiritual power and performed the Changshengju with all his strength. The movement was so loud that it spread to the center of the sword formation. Sun Qinyang's heart tightened, and she wanted to turn around to help Zuyun. But then he thought again, even if he was already in the early stage of Jindan, he was powerless to deal with Tang Zhuyang. At most, he could help Zuyun win a moment of respite, but he would not be able to escape death in the end. "Zuyun, hold on a little longer, it will be fine soon." Sun Qinyang worried secretly in her heart, and resolutely walked towards the stone pillar of the array. At this time, Tang Zhuyang had completely forgotten the existence of Sun Qinyang. Or rather, he ignored Sun Qinyang. For him, even if Sun Qinyang was in the early stage of Jindan, she could not threaten him at all. On the contrary, Zuyun was a cunning guy, and he had the solution to the array that he needed. It was impossible to let him run away. Because of this, Tang Zhuyang did not have the intention to kill Zuyun as before, but used the external fire formula to activate his spirit fire to find him. This spirit fire was the place that Tang Zhuyang found in Yeazhu that year. It was nurtured in the body for many years and had extraordinary strength. It was originally his trump card, but now that he is in Yeazhu, he is not afraid of it being leaked. In his eyes, both of them will die and sleep here with his secret. However, Tang Zhuyang didn't know that Zuyun had a more advanced heavenly fire, the burning heaven flame. As the earthly fire approached, Zuyun suddenly felt that the burning heaven flame suddenly jumped up under the Tao platform. "Eat, I want to eat." A thought came into his mind. Suddenly, Zuyun suddenly woke up. the burning heaven flame was connected to his soul, and this strong desire also affected him. His mind began to spin rapidly, whether to let the burning heaven flame leave the body and devour this spiritual fire. There was only one question. After the burning heaven flame was discovered by Tang Zhuyang, would his greed for the heavenly fire overshadow the solution to the formation? If so, he would most likely die on the spot. But if he didn't solve this spiritual fire, he would be caught by Tang Zhuyang sooner or later. Zuyun weighed the pros and cons while running. And Tang Zhuyang's footsteps were also chasing closely. What should I do? He believed that with Tang Zhuyang's eyesight, he could definitely tell that the burning sky flame was much stronger than his spiritual fire. Gritting his teeth, Zuyun decided to wait and see for a while. Perhaps when Sun Qinyang activated and controlled the sword formation, it would be a good time. Thinking of this, Zuyun no longer considered it and rushed around in the mist. Finally, after a cup of tea, Sun Qinyang's delicate voice penetrated the mist and reached his ears. Zuyun, come quickly. This was like the sound of nature, which not only allowed Zuyun to determine the direction, but also made him very happy. He quickly went around the edge, and while Tang Zhuyang had not reacted, he had already pinched several firebird talismans in his hand. This was all his assets. Go. Zuyun did not hesitate at all, and the firebird talisman turned into a group of fire phoenixes, flying straight towards Tang Zhuyang. At the same time, he also directly sacrificed the burning sky flame and threw it at the spiritual fire not far behind him. With the momentum of this group of fire phoenixes, the momentum of the burning sky flame was perfectly covered. Tang Zhuyang didn't know it was a trick. While dodging the firebird talisman, he also determined Zuyun's position through the direction of the fire phoenix. Boy, this talisman is really a lot. Tang Zhuyang snorted coldly, and immediately increased his speed and attacked Zuyun. It was fast. Zuyun just turned around, and Tang Zhuyang's right hand had already attacked his back. But Zuyun had rich combat experience, and he threw out the earth armor talisman when he turned around. Tang Zhuyang's palm power suddenly stagnated, and the earth armor was instantly broken, but it also gave Zuyun a chance to breathe. And this breath was enough for him to rush towards Sun Qinyang. Boy, it seems that you not only have the solution to the formation, but also a book about talismans. Tang Zhuyang naturally recognized that this was an earth armor talisman, and found that he was actually delayed. He secretly thought that Zuyun's attainments in the talisman path were not shallow. However, of course he would not stop. The palm missed, and he quickly chased Zuyun's disappearing figure. Until, when he saw Zuyun's figure, he slapped another palm in the air, and at the same time, the pressure of the pill formation stage suddenly surged towards him. Zuyun's legs went weak, and before he completely lost his mobility, another earth armor talisman was thrown behind him. Boom! An explosion sounded, and the earthen armor was shattered by Tang Zhuyang again. But at the same time, Zuyun's voice also sounded. Sun Qinyang, I leave it to you. As soon as he finished speaking, Tang Zhuyang felt that something was wrong. This kid, in such a situation, actually let Sun Qinyang take action. Could it be that he had a backup plan? Surprised, Sun Qinyang shouted, "Array up!" Suddenly, the towering stone pillar among the clouds and mist suddenly began to tremble, and the entire valley was also turbulent. A stream of spiritual power rushed from Sun Qinyang's body towards the stone pillar. Not good. Feeling that Sun Qinyang's spiritual power was amplified through the stone pillars and locked on his body, a sense of crisis emerged from the bottom of his heart, and Tang Zhuyang's expression changed drastically. Want to run? It's too late. Sun Qinyang gave a sweet shout, and then spit out blood from her mouth. In an instant, the speed of the spiritual power she transferred to Shizu suddenly accelerated a lot. I understand, these two people actually want to use this formation to trap me. Tang Zhuyang was horrified. If it were a head-on fight, None of the 10 Sun Qiniangs would be his opponent. But he himself is also well versed in formations and knows how powerful they are. Especially when he entered the confused sword formation for the first time, he vaguely recognized that this formation was similar to his ancestral formation, and he was even more scared when he activated it now. Escape. Tang Zhuyang, who was in the late stage of pill formation, only had this word in his heart at this time. How could he care about Zuyun in front of him and the spirit fire still remaining in the mist? Only. He is faster, Sun Qiniang is faster. Sun Qiniang, who is fighting for her life, has activated all the formation patterns. Golden light visible to the naked eye shot out from the stone pillars and wrapped around Tang Zhuyang. Come down here. Sun Qiniang roared angrily, with blood foam coming out of her mouth every time she spoke a word. As the last word was shouted, Tang Zhuyang, who was already in the air, was suddenly pulled down by thousands of golden lights and dragged towards the depression in the stone pillar. Damn it! Tang Zhuyang's eyes were about to burst, he struggled constantly, and all his spiritual power surged out crazily. Some formation patterns broke instantly, but soon a new formation pattern lit up and rolled towards Tang Zhuyang again. Seeing the stone pillar getting bigger and bigger in his eyes, Tang Zhuyang finally remembered his trump card. Come on fire! He roared angrily, and used the fire technique outside his body to control the spiritual fire to come to help, but until half of his body entered the depression, no fire appeared in the mist. On the contrary, a trace of fear emerged from his mind. That is the fear of spiritual fire. At this time, Zuyun sneered, sorry, your fire belongs to me now. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 209. No, no. What did you do? How could you possibly steal my earth fire in just one foundation establishment period? Tang Zhuyang was controlled by the patterns of the confused sword formation and could not turn back at all, he could only roar hysterically. Then how could you be trapped here by us when you are already in the pill formation stage? Zuyun didn't bother to fight back. He could see that Tang Zhuyang was at the end of his strength. Otherwise, he wouldn't have thought of using fire to rescue him last. Damn, damn. You both deserve to die. Tang Zhuyang looked crazy, and his body was embedded into the depression of the stone pillar bit by bit. Until, a fire suddenly flashed in the mist, and a human-shaped flame ran lightly towards the side. In an instant, he became more awake and shouted in surprise, come on, burn them to death. The human-shaped flame jumped up and rushed straight towards Zuyun. Just when Tang Zhuyang was overjoyed, he saw the flame leap into the palm of Zuyun's hand, and then quickly shrank and turned into a flame. He was so excited. This. Tang Zhuyang suddenly froze and uttered an incredible sentence, you really conquered this earth fire. Zuyun was non-committal and smiled slightly. At this time, Sun Qiniang used up all her spiritual power and finally completely trapped Tang Zhuyang in the stone pillar. Boom! The stone pillar shook again, all the formation patterns were disconnected, and finally sank into Tang Zhuyang's body and disappeared. Ah! My spiritual power, my spiritual power. Feeling the crazy flow of spiritual power in his body, Tang Zhuyang screamed in fear. The enchanted sword transformed by these formation patterns will absorb the spiritual power of the person who is suppressing it, and turn it into the energy that supports the formation. At that time, Meng Wei was trapped for more than 500 years because of this, and even caused her state to decline. As soon as the cry started, Sun Qiniang's whole body went limp. After the mysterious sword formation was repaired by the new Elder Wand, it was never used again. Sun Qiniang used all her spiritual power to drive again. Zuyun, you live up to your high expectations. Her face was full of joy, but there was also a hint of disaster. Fortunately, Zuyun used the realm-breaking pill to allow her to break through to the pill formation stage. Otherwise, she would definitely not be able to suppress Tang Zhuyang with the power of this formation. However, it is not that easy to kill him. The confused sword formation is the formation I, and Tang Zhuyang is also integrated with this formation I. The formation I will continuously absorb spiritual power from Tang Zhuyang's golden elixir to maintain it. With this level of spiritual power, whether it is Zuyun or Sun Qiniang, if they want to kill him, they must directly destroy the formation together. The reason why Zuyun teamed up with Meng Wei to destroy the stone pillar in the first place was because Meng Wei at that time had no desire to be immortal. Of course, this formation was not much stronger. Sun Qiniang, are you okay? Zuyun took Fen Tianyan back into his dantian, rushed forward and helped her up. It's okay, it's just that my spiritual power is exhausted and my injuries are a little worse. Sun Qiniang pretended to be relaxed and said. Zuyun was silent for a moment and said, then you take good care of your injuries. When you are well, we will go to the wild sea together. Upon hearing this, Sun Qiniang's eyes suddenly flashed with joy. Before, she wanted to go with Zuyun countless times, but was rejected. He even sneaked away several times without saying goodbye. But this time, Zuyun finally invited her. Sun Qiniang sighed in her heart, and then said, this time, I can't do it without 3 or 5 years. Besides, what are you doing in the wild sea? Neither she nor Jian Tianming knew that there was a large formation in the sea. Zuyun said truthfully, there is a big formation in the sea, and maybe there will be a chance. You are already in the elixir formation stage, even if you are injured, but you and I are walking together, so we can seize the opportunity. Forget it, you'd better go on your own. Sun Qiniang struggled to sit up. She knew only too well how serious her injuries were. 3 to 5 years is considered light. Admittedly, she also wanted to try her luck in Yeazhu. But when Jian Tianming came out of the secret realm, everyone knew that she flew towards Jian Shishi, including people from the Haori sect. Therefore, it is very dangerous for her to go to Yeazhu. On the contrary, it is business to stay in Yunzhou and recuperate. Thinking of this, Sun Qiniang raised her head and smiled at Zuyun. Jian Tianming came here this time to destroy the Lingjian section. They will definitely not send anyone to Yunzhou again in the future, so I plan to stay here. Zuyun frowned and was about to speak when he heard Sun Qiniang say, in addition, Tang Zhuyang is trapped here. He needs someone to guard him, right? Now none of us can kill him. What if someone comes down, is bewitched by him, and breaks through this pillar? Upon hearing this, Zuyun was about to persuade Sun Qiniang again, but he immediately swallowed it back. Really? They had made an enemy of Tang Zhuyang, who was in the late stage of pill formation. If he didn't die, danger would definitely exist. Sun Qiniang was recuperating from her injuries while taking care of her, which was a decision that killed 2 birds with 1 stone. After a moment of silence, Zuyun said again, what about Lingjian sect? Keep it, I've thought about it. Anyway, those in the foundation establishment period are dead, so I might as well take the position of the sect leader. Anyway, I know the sword control techniques of the Lingjian sect, and, the things from Wanjian Mountain, it can also be taught, maybe it can bring the spirit sword sect back to life. Zuyun thought for a moment and said, as long as Wanjianshan thinks that Lingjian sect no longer exists, then it is safe for you to stay here. Just as he nodded, there were 2 footsteps at the end of the road down the mountain. Zuyun was shocked and realized that it must be Yu Yulin who brought Zhu Feng. It must be that they stayed in the cave for a long time and did not see him coming back. Then they heard the movement below. Zuyun still agreed to Sun Qiniang, everyone has their own ambitions, and since she didn't want to go with him, then forget it. Sun Qiniang swallowed some pills and felt much better. She could barely walk. The two passed through the fog formation and saw Yu Yulin and Zhu Feng, who were hesitating. "You're not dead," the two said in unison, but their tone was different. Yu Yulin was happy, but Zhu Feng was surprised. When they were in the cave, Yu Yulin told Zhu Feng that the movement was at least caused by the seniors in the pill formation stage. And Zhu Yun is only in the foundation building stage, so he may not be able to escape. "Why, do you really want me to die?" Zhu Yun looked at his half-brother with interest. "I don't." Zhu Feng shrank back in fear and subconsciously hid behind Yu Yulin. "Yu Yulin, there is no need to leave Lingjian section." Zhu Yun smiled, pointed at Sun Qiniang and said to Yu Yulin, "From now on, she will be the leader of the Lingjian section." Yu Yulin had been practicing for a long time. Although he didn't know what happened, he still simply fell to the ground. Disciple Yu Yulin has met the sect master. Seeing that Zhu Feng behind him didn't respond, he quickly pulled him and said angrily, "Xiao Feng, why don't you show your respects quickly?" Zhu Feng looked at Zhu Yun, then at Sun Qiniang, whose clothes were all torn, and then he bowed down unwillingly. "Zhu Feng has met the sect master." Sun Qiniang flashed a look of surprise and turned to look at Zhu Yun. "His surname is Zhu too." "My half-brother." Zhu Yun spread his hands and said, "Maybe he was spoiled by his mother, so he went to Lingjian sect alone to become a disciple." Sun Qiniang giggled and said, "This boy has a certain recklessness, which is suitable for practicing swordsmanship. I do know a sword technique. If you are relieved, will you let him be my apprentice?" Zhu Yun didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and said, "You are the leader of Lingjian sect, you have the final say." Sun Qiniang's eyes flashed, and she said with a smile, "Zhu Yun, I remember that you have not been kicked out of the sect, right? How about you be promoted and become an elder?" Zhu Yun laughed and said, "What elder? If you don't give me some benefits, I won't bother to take it." After blinking, Sun Qiniang said, "Well, seventh elder, how about it? Anyway, you know 7 skills. Okay, are you trying to convince me that I can make elixirs and refine weapons and draw talismans? Sun Qiniang, do you really want to keep me here as a coolie just after you became the sect leader?" As he said that, the two looked at each other and smiled. Yu Yulin's face was dull. "This new sect leader is called Sun Qiniang? It seems like I have heard it somewhere." However, no matter how embarrassed Sun Qiniang was, Yu Yulin could still feel the unrivaled aura from her. "Zhu Yun, I'm serious." Sun Qiniang put away her smile and said, "The Lingjian sect is both disorganized and in dire straits. If it wants to develop again, I can't find a suitable candidate at this time." Zhu Yun pondered for a moment and said, "Well, I can provide some basic elixirs. As for how to manage the sect, I am not good at it either." In the Diwu glazed mirror, there were enough ordinary Heki pills, Huanglong pills, and nourishing essence pills, and he couldn't use any of them. Why not, just leave it to Sun Qiniang? Seeing Zhu Yun agree, Sun Qiniang smiled like a flower. "I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 210. At Zhu Yun's request, he entered the valley again. The mist formation had been destroyed. It was all the work of those elders back then, and then it was discovered that Sun Suanhua and Zhu Yun were both missing. This is one of the main reasons for them to stop fighting among themselves. In the valley, Zhu Yun set up a 9-turn 9-yang formation, and then gave only Sun Qiniang the route map for entering and exiting the formation. After giving all the useless elixirs to Sun Qiniang, he made a formation disc so that she could easily control it in an emergency. After doing all this, he drove the flying boat and left safely. As for how to arrange the people inside the door, Zhu Yun didn't say a word. "Even, I haven't had much communication with Zhu Feng. On the contrary, it was Yu Yulin and Zhu Yun who left some extra pills for him as a token of gratitude." In front of the barren mountain in the sect master's hall, Sun Qiniang stood pretty. Behind her was Zhu Feng, who had been accepted as her direct disciple. I don't know whether it was because of Zhu Yun's relationship or Zhu Feng's reckless temperament, but Sun Qiniang really took him under his tutelage and prepared to teach him carefully. Zhu Yun took a leisurely stroll to the small town at the foot of the mountain. I saw some people repairing the house in the distance, which made me feel a little strange. Although this small town is not prosperous enough, because it is close to the Spirit Sword sect, there are often monks coming and going. But if we talk about fights, there are really very few. Even if there are, no one will affect this house. From a distance, it was obviously an inn. Could it be Meng Wei and the others? Thinking of this, Zhu Yun hurried over. There were two corpses, a man and a woman, on the ground. The head of one of them also fell to the side, which was a bit leaky. He could recognize that these were the two people from Wangxian sect who had met once in the secret realm. They were all in the foundation building stage. How could they die so tragically? At this time, someone suddenly walked up to Zhu Yun and said cautiously to Zhu Yun, "Master Immortal, do you know these two people?" Zhu Yun turned around and saw Immortal dressed in rich clothes. "How?" "Immortal Master, I am the owner of this inn. These two immortal masters died here, and I don't dare to deal with them at will. If you know them." As the boss spoke, he carefully paid attention to Zhu Yun's expression, fearing that Zhu Yun would be angry because of his boldness. But it is really inappropriate to open the door for business and have two corpses in front of the door. And he didn't dare to move forward, lest relatives and friends of the two people came and misunderstood him for stealing some relics. Zhu Yun also understood what he meant, shook his head and said, "I don't know them, but why did they die here? If you tell me the details, I will help you dispose of these two corpses." After hearing this, the boss couldn't help but look overjoyed and said, "Master Immortal, please sit in the room." The beating here was so intense that the villain almost peed his pants while hiding in the room. Zhu Yun nodded slightly, and after following his boss into the room and sitting down, he heard clearly the whole story of what happened. "Thank you very much." Zhu Yun found a silver ingot from the corner of the storage bag, placed it gently on the table, then walked out of the door, took away the two corpses, then stood up on his sword and flew rapidly towards the south. One of these two people died at the hands of Zhao Kamang, while the other was killed by a dark red knife. It is not surprising that Zhao Kamang has such strength. But the dark red knife. Meng Wei is already immortal, so naturally he cannot drive this sword. It can be seen from this that it must be the two dogs. But the most mysterious thing is that Zhao Kamang was taken away by a third-party monk. And from the boss's retelling, we can know that it was probably Hiao City that did it. Maritime City? Zhu Yun squinted his eyes, but he didn't expect that the place where he didn't want to intersect would happen again. I hope Ergu and the others won't fall into it by mistake. The sky was getting dark, and Zhu Yun had galloped for more than 100 miles. His sight was blocked, and he was afraid that releasing his spiritual consciousness would alert the monks of Hiao City, so he fell to the ground and walked instead. No trace of them was found all the way. Although Zhu Yun was anxious, he also knew that he could not eat hot tofu in a hurry. We can only hope that once we get close to them, the dog's nose will smell his scent and actively look for him. As everyone knows, these people at this time are only 100 miles away from Hiao City. "Brother, there are many monks ahead, what should we do?" The patrol area of Hiao City is not small, and Ergu and others are careful enough to keep a certain distance and lurk. Now only Zhou Ruyu and Gaobi have maintained their full combat strength. But any monk on patrol is an existence they cannot match. Being able to kill Huang Lei and Huang Meng is a loss of Zhao Kamang. Let alone now. From what I see, it's better to go back to find Big Brother. The dog sniffed and said angrily. "No, that's Xiao Zhu's mount. I must confirm where the mount has gone." It wasn't that Ergu was persistent, but he felt that he would definitely care about a monster that was in the late stage of foundation building and had been following Zuyun for so long. Originally, they didn't plan to follow him, thinking that they were good at finding people with their noses. Just wait until Zuyun comes back and let the dog nose lead the way. Unexpectedly, the beast-controlling monk actually put Zhao Kamang away without any breath at all. And in an emergency, the dog's nose didn't even remember the person's scent. Although they caught up, they were afraid of being discovered, so they kept a certain distance, and Gaobi had no way to deal with it. So they stayed far behind until the man entered the sea area city. "Brother, there are several foundation building stage ahead," Zhou said with great worry. Ergu said firmly, "It's okay, you see they are walking back and forth nearby, we just need to stay away and not be discovered." Hearing this, everyone was a little helpless. Meng Wei had an indifferent expression on her face. She leaned against a tree casually with an unknown small flower on her head. She looked heartless. Gaobi felt that staring at people was really boring. He looked at the sky and could take another pill, so he took out a puppet soul pill and swallowed it directly. Just when he was trying his best to dissolve the power of the medicine, the air fluctuations generated by the purification of spiritual power were immediately discovered by the foundation building stage in the distance. "There are people over there." With one of them shouting, a total of 3 foundation building stage rushed over here. Ergu and Zhouruyu's faces changed drastically, and they wanted to escape immediately. But there were only 2 horses for the 4 of them, one of which was a mortal horse. How could they escape? "Sister, you take Meng Wei first," Ergu said hurriedly, motioning her to get on the spiritual horse. But Zhouruyu was not willing to let Ergu go, and shook his head repeatedly, saying, "Brother, you take Sister Wei away, one of you is injured, and the other is immortal. Sangu and I are still cultivators after all." Hearing that he, a second-level chi refining, was left behind to die, Go Bazai almost went crazy. Fortunately, he was an old dog who had lived for thousands of years and had amazing concentration, so he finally didn't get into trouble. But if nothing happened, it would not be long before something happened. 3 figures, stepping on their respective magic weapons, stood in the air in front of them. "It's too late," Ergu said in a low voice. "Sister, Meng Wei is Xiaozu's man, you take her away quickly, Sangu and I will stay." "Brother, what's the point of you staying?" Zhouruyu said firmly, but Meng Wei smiled and said, "You go, I will stay here alone to hold them back." "No." Ergu turned around and shouted angrily, and one of them fell down, saying disdainfully, "Who are you? Why are you lurking here furtively?" He, another person fell down, and saw Meng Wei who had just stood up, and his eyes flashed with obscene color. "If you are suspicious, arrest him first." After that, he stretched out his hand to grab Meng Wei in the air. The third person saw Zhouruyu and was also shocked by her beauty. "No matter how beautiful your mortal is, how can she withstand your great strength? Only this little beauty in the chi refining stage can make me last longer." A pressure instantly enveloped Zhouruyu. Ergu was shocked and angry, spitting out blood, and took out the dark red knife. On one side is his sister, and on the other side is Meng Wei. Unless he dies, he must not let them get hurt. But the 2 foundation building stages each had their own goals, and the first person who came down immediately noticed the knife in Ergu's hand. "Huh? Not bad. You got the beauty, so this treasure belongs to me." While speaking, his spiritual consciousness quickly locked onto the knife in Ergu's hand, and at the same time he stretched out a palm and slapped Ergu through the air. At this moment, Gaobi suddenly shouted, "Stop! You are looking for death." Everyone's body was stagnant, and the spiritual power they controlled was weakened, and Ergu also had a chance to breathe. But the 3 of them saw that Gaobi was only at the second level of chi refining, so they couldn't help but look at him with contempt and ignored him. The palm force that attacked Ergu had dissipated, but the momentum to take the knife did not stop. But just after the monk took the knife away from Ergu, a flash of sword light came quietly, and the arm that was about to hold the knife flew up with blood.